Grace Miller, a kind-hearted high school girl, worked as a babysitter to support her education. When she met a teenage mother struggling to make ends meet, she offered to watch her baby for free, thinking it was just a small act of kindness. But days later, everything changed. A helicopter hovered above her house, and black SUVs filled the driveway. What they came to deliver was a revelation about the young mother, one so shocking it would leave everyone questioning who she truly was, and the secret past she tried to leave behind.
Hi, and welcome to Unraveled Whispers. Let's begin.
Grace evenings always smelled faintly of coffee and laundry detergent. Her mother usually worked late at the dental office, and her dad came home tired from driving deliveries, the scent of engine oil clinging to his jacket. Their kitchen was narrow, clean, and forever humming with the sound of the refrigerator. Most nights, Grace sat at the table, textbooks open beside a half-finished cup of cocoa, figuring out how to stretch a part-time babysitter's income into something that could resemble a college fund. Sometimes she'd glance toward the hallway mirror, catching her own reflection, and wondering if she already looked older than 17. Like responsibility had carved a faint outline on her face before the world had even started. Her parents had started that fund years ago, an envelope tucked in a drawer, but tuition numbers grew faster than paychecks. They talked about it gently, never as complaint, more as math. "We can cover the deposit, maybe the first semester," her mom had said one night while stacking bills by the sink. "After that, it'll be loans." Grace smiled, half to reassure her. "I'll keep babysitting." "The Smiths want me again this weekend." Her dad, flipping through the mail, gave a quiet nod. "Just be careful, honey. Not everyone out there plays fair when it comes to money." "I know," she said, and meant it. In truth, she liked the work. The smell of baby shampoo on her clothes afterward, the quiet hours when the house she watched felt like a storybook where nothing bad ever happened. It was one of those late suppers, news murmuring from the TV, the wind rattling the kitchen window, when her mom mentioned it. "Oh, Mrs. Lewis called earlier," she said, rinsing a plate. "You remember her? The one with the golden retriever?" "Sure," Grace answered. Her mom nodded, drying her hands on a towel. She said she rented her basement unit to a young mother. "Barely 19, has a baby, looks worn out, poor thing." Her dad shook his head. "That's a hard road for a kid." "Did she say if the girls got help?" "Doesn't sound like it." Her mom replied, "She's polite, quiet. Mrs. Lewis said she mostly stays inside." Grace looked up from her notes. "Does she have anyone watching the baby?" "Don't think so." "Why?" "I could help. I've got weekends free." Her dad gave a soft grunt that carried both pride and caution. "As long as she can pay." "You can't save for college on charity." Grace smiled, already picturing a door at the end of some quiet street. "I'll just talk to her first." Her mom exchanged a look with her dad, the kind that meant she's stubborn, but her heart's in the right place. That Saturday, the air smelled like rain, and Grace walked the short distance to Maple Street. The basement apartment sat under the wide porch of a weathered house Mrs. Lewis rented out to tenants. A stroller leaned against the railing, a small stuffed giraffe dangling from its handle. The neighborhood was quiet, one porch light flickering, a dog barking somewhere far off. Grace hesitated, brushed damp hair from her face, and knocked. When the door opened, she saw someone barely older than herself, maybe a year, maybe two. The young woman's eyes were tired but steady, a baby balanced on her hip. "Hi," Grace began. "I'm Grace Miller. Mrs. Lewis mentioned you might need a babysitter." The woman blinked, as if deciding whether to let a stranger see her fatigue. "I'm Ava," she said finally, "and this is Liam." The baby gurgled, clutching a corner of her sleeve. Inside, smelled of baby powder and instant coffee. A single lamp lit a tidy but threadbare room, folded laundry on the couch, formula cans on the counter, a photo frame turned face down beside the sink. Grace took in the small apartment, the worn furniture, the quiet air that carried exhaustion more than noise. Something in her decided before money was ever mentioned. "Don't worry about payment," she said gently. "I can help a few evenings a week." Ava hesitated. "I don't want to start off owing you." "You're not," Grace said softly, her eyes shifting to Liam. "I just like kids." They talked logistics, hours, bedtime, how Liam liked his bottle warmed twice. The conversation stayed polite, a little awkward, two worlds brushing edges. When Grace left, the porch light flickered behind her, and she thought about the way Ava's hand had trembled when she locked the door. The next evening, the babysitting began. Ava had said only, "I've got a shift," as she adjusted her jacket and kissed Liam's forehead. Grace watched from the window until the taillights disappeared. The apartment settled into soft noises, the ticking wall clock, the baby's breathing, the distant hum of cars along the main road. She studied between feedings, whispering the alphabet to keep the baby calm. Once, she noticed a small rip in the couch seam and idly stitched it with thread she found in a drawer, the kind of pointless kindness she never mentioned later. By 11:30, Liam was asleep, his tiny fist wrapped around her finger. Ava returned close to midnight. "Here," she said, holding out a small wad of bills. "It's not much, but—" Grace smiled and shook her head. "We already agreed. It's okay. You shouldn't have to do this for free, and you shouldn't have to do all this alone." For a heartbeat, Ava just stared, eyes glistening the way exhaustion turns to gratitude. Then she nodded. "Thank you, Grace." At home, the next morning, sunlight fell across the kitchen table where Grace poured cereal. Her mom noticed the dark circles under her eyes. "Late night?" "Yeah, the baby wouldn't sleep." "Did she pay you?" her dad asked from behind the newspaper. Grace hesitated. She tried. "I told her not to worry until next week." The paper lowered just enough for his frown. "So, free labor now?" "She's 19, Dad. She's doing her best." Her mom sighed. "We just don't want people taking advantage of you." Grace stirred her spoon through the milk. "She's not like that." "Still," her dad muttered, "good intentions don't fill the college envelope." Grace smiled without looking up. "Maybe not. But they make it worth opening." Her mother's expression softened then. She reached over, brushed a stray hair from Grace's face and whispered, "You've always had a good heart. Just promise me it won't get you hurt." That weekend turned into 2, then 3. Each time Grace arrived, Liam reached for her, and Ava looked both grateful and embarrassed. Sometimes Ava came home smelling faintly of fried food, other nights of cold air and rain. She never said where she went, only, "Thanks again. I owe you big time." Grace would pack her notes, wave off the money, and tell her, "Don't worry about it." Her parents kept arguing gently over dinner, half teasing, half exasperated. "St. Grace of Maple Street," her dad joked once, but there was pride behind the sarcasm. Her mom said less, though sometimes Grace caught her watching quietly, as if trying to decide whether kindness was a strength or a risk. The small house stayed noisy with routine, the clatter of dishes, the creak of the old stair. But under it all, Grace felt a new kind of silence, the kind that comes from caring about someone whose story you don't fully know. By the 4th weekend, Grace knew the layout of Ava's small apartment by heart, the creak in the hallway floor, the way the heater coughed before warming up, the single lullaby Ava always hummed before leaving. The girl still wouldn't talk about her life, but Grace stopped asking. She sensed a story folded tight beneath those sleepless eyes, something waiting, something heavy. For now, it was enough to rock the baby, close the door behind Ava, and trust that helping someone could still make sense in a world where good people sometimes ran out of luck. Later that same night, Ava came home quieter than usual, her shoulders slumped, but her eyes gentler than before. She hung her coat by the door, glanced at the sleeping baby, and turned to Grace with a tired smile. "I'll pay you next week," she said, slipping her hands into her jacket pockets. "I finally get my full check Friday." Grace waved it off. "You don't have to rush." "I do." "You've been too kind." Ava's voice carried both gratitude and embarrassment. Grace smiled. "Okay then. If you insist, it'll just end up in my college fund anyway." Ava laughed softly. "Good. Then I'll feel like I helped a little." When Grace left, the air had that wet, cold bite that hints at rain. She looked back once. Ava was still in the doorway, baby monitor glowing faint blue behind her. Grace raised a hand in a small wave. Ava lifted her own, then stepped inside. The door closed with a soft click that, somehow, felt like more than good night. The next Friday evening, Grace climbed the same steps, expecting the same warm light behind the curtains. The porch, however, was dark. The stroller was gone, the doormat slightly damp from early drizzle. She knocked once, then again. No sound. The curtains stayed still. A voice startled her. "Oh, Grace, isn't it?" Mrs. Lewis stood on the walk, clutching a stack of mail. "Yes. Is Ava home?" The woman shook her head, eyes wide in mild confusion. Early this morning, 3 black SUVs pulled up right out front. Men in suits. Quiet, polite. They went down to her door. 10 minutes later, she came out with the baby. They helped her into one of the cars and drove off. Didn't say a word. Grace blinked. "Men in suits?" Mrs. Lewis nodded, lowering her voice a little. Looked official. Maybe family, maybe something else. "I didn't want to pry." Grace nodded, murmured thanks, though her throat felt tight. She glanced at the empty windows, at the faint tire marks curling away into the street, and for the first time, the little apartment looked smaller than she remembered, like a secret that had folded itself closed. That night, she told her parents. The story came out between bites of dinner, her voice low, almost uncertain. She mentioned the empty porch, the neighbor, the black SUVs waiting in the rain. Her father set down his fork and rubbed a hand across his face, saying little at first. When he finally spoke, it was the kind of voice that tried to sound practical but trembled with worry. "Sometimes, Grace, people aren't what we hope they are." Her mother didn't argue or agree, just looked at her daughter for a long moment, the way mothers do when they're trying to measure the distance between innocence and experience. Grace nodded, pretending to understand, though everything inside her felt unsteady. Later, she sat at her desk, the lamp throwing a pale circle across her notes. The house had gone still except for the hum of the refrigerator down the hall. She opened the college fund envelope, touched the edges, then set beside it a thin pink ribbon she'd once tied in the baby's hair when Ava forgot an elastic. It lay there lightly, catching the lamplight like a small memory refusing to fade. She leaned back, thinking of Ava's tired smile, the men in suits, the sound of car doors closing in the rain. Maybe her parents were right. Maybe kindness made people see what they wanted to see. But another part of her whispered that kindness wasn't foolishness. It was faith. The night outside was silent until a low mechanical hum began to rise somewhere beyond the neighborhood. It deepened, steady and deliberate, joined by the slow growl of engines. Headlights slid across the wall, throwing moving shadows over the quiet room. Her father looked up from the couch. "Grace, you hear that?" Engines slowed outside. Tires hissed on the wet pavement. Through the window, 3 black SUVs rolled to a stop in front of the porch, their lights spilling over the steps. Then another sound joined them, heavier, rhythmic. The air trembled as a helicopter cut through the mist, its blades beating closer, the vibration rattling the windows. Her mother appeared in the hallway, startled. Before anyone could speak, the doorbell rang, sharp and deliberate. Her father crossed the room and opened the door halfway. 2 suited men stood beneath the porch light, rain glittering on their coats. The thrum of the helicopter rolled through the night behind them. "Mr. Miller?" the taller one asked, voice even and professional. "We're here regarding your daughter, Grace. She's been working as a babysitter for a young woman named Ava Reeves." Grace stepped forward. "Yes. What about her? Is she all right?" "She's safe," the man said quickly. "Mr. Reeves requested that you and your family come with us. He'd like to speak with you in person." Her father frowned. "Reeves?" He blinked, realizing. "You mean the billionaire Landon Reeves?" "I deliver for one of his plants." The man nodded once. "Yes, sir. Ava Reeves is his daughter," Rain whispered between them. Her mother blinked, trying to make sense of it. "His daughter?" "That girl was living in a basement apartment, with a baby." The man's expression softened. "Sometimes pride builds walls even love can't reach," he said quietly. "Mr. Reeves will explain more himself." Her father's brow tightened. "You expect us to go in the middle of the night?" "You have nothing to fear," the man replied. "Mr. Reeves only wishes to meet you and to thank your daughter for her kindness toward his." The helicopter's light swept across the porch, white and blinding for a moment. The man turned toward the noise. "That'll be your transport," he said. "Mr. Reeves sent the helicopter for you." Her father hesitated. "All of us?" "Yes, sir," the man replied. "He and Miss Reeves would like to meet your family together." Wind pressed against their faces, the porch light flickering. Grace looked at her parents. Her mother reached for her hand. Her father nodded once, still stunned. "Please," the man said, gesturing toward the porch. "We'll take you safely." They stepped into the rain. The men opened umbrellas, guiding them down the steps. The helicopter waited there, black and gleaming, its blades turning in slow, deliberate rhythm. The suited man opened the door and motioned them inside. "Mr. Reeves and Miss Reeves are expecting you," he said simply. Grace climbed in last. The rotors quickened. The ground began to fall away. Below, their small street shrank beneath the wash of light, puddles flashing like mirrors. The fear faded as the lights of the city spread out beneath them. Whatever waited ahead no longer felt like danger. It felt like truth and gratitude finally taking shape in the night. Through the window, Grace saw a long driveway stretching toward a large house set back among the trees. Rain still fell, soft and steady, tapping against the glass as the skids touched down. When the door opened, cool air rushed in, mixed with the faint smell of wet grass and fuel. A few men in dark coats waited nearby with umbrellas, motioning them out. Grace followed as they stepped forward together, the path short, the house growing larger with each step. The sound of the helicopter faded behind them, replaced by the quiet hum of rain on stone. The doors opened soundlessly. Inside, the light softened. A man stood near the grand staircase, tall, silver at the temples, his expression composed but kind. Beside him, Ava held her baby. The child saw Grace first. Little Liam blinked, then gave a delighted squeal, reaching out with both hands. His laugh cut through the hush, bright and certain. Ava looked down, startled, then smiled through sudden tears. Grace's lips curved despite herself. "Hey there, remember me?" she whispered. Liam kicked his feet, gurgling again, as if he did. Landon Reeves stepped forward. "Mr. Miller, Mrs. Miller, Grace, thank you for coming," he said, voice deep and calm. "And thank you, most of all, for what your daughter did for mine." Grace's father managed a nod, still taking in the marble floors, the chandeliers, the quiet precision of people who lived in order. "Sir, we're not sure what to say." "We didn't know." "You weren't supposed to," Landon interrupted gently. "Ava wanted it that way. Please come in. Let's sit." He led them into a sitting room where a fire flickered low in the hearth. The storm outside softened to drizzle against the tall windows. Everyone settled carefully, like guests at a service they didn't yet understand. Landon began. 2 years ago, my daughter and I disagreed, strongly. She believed she'd found love. I saw something different, a boy who wanted her name, not her heart. I told her so. Too sharply, he paused, looking toward Ava. She left that night. I thought pride would burn off after a week. Instead, months passed. Then a year, Ava's voice was quiet but steady. I thought I was proving I could stand alone. Then I found out I was pregnant. I was too ashamed to call him, too stubborn to come home. Landon's hands folded in his lap. The boy stayed just long enough to meet his son. Then he left. She hid her number, changed apartments. I didn't know where she was. I told myself she'd call when she needed me. Ava looked down at Liam. But I didn't. I took night shifts at a diner, cleaned houses in the mornings. On weekends, I tried to catch up on sleep. That's when Grace came. I couldn't pay her at first, but she never made me feel less for it. She turned to Grace, eyes wet. You didn't even ask questions. You just showed up. Grace shook her head, embarrassed. It wasn't anything big. You needed help. It was everything, Ava said. You gave me space to breathe. You were the first person in months who didn't look at me like I'd ruined my life. Landon's gaze softened as he listened. When I finally found her, he said, it was by accident. One of my drivers mentioned a young woman with a baby renting a basement on the east side. He recognized her from an old photo in my office. I sent people immediately. When they told me how she'd been living, he stopped, his throat working once before he continued. I realized the distance between us was my doing, not hers. The room went still, except for the faint pop of the fire. Ava rocked Liam gently. The baby cooed, half asleep, his tiny hand clutching her sleeve. Grace's mother glanced at her daughter, pride softening the worry in her eyes. I should have gone to her sooner, Landon said, but when I heard from my men that someone, a high school girl, had been helping her, refusing pay, watching the baby so Ava could work, I wanted to meet that person myself. Grace's father cleared his throat. She just wanted to do the right thing. We didn't even know the full story until tonight, Landon nodded. That's what makes it remarkable. He reached to a small side table, drew out a sealed envelope, and turned it over in his hands. Grace, he said, this is for you. It's a complete education grant, tuition, books, housing, everything you'll need until you finish college. It's established in your name, not through my company. No conditions. Grace froze, staring at it. I can't take that, she said. I didn't help her for... Ava interrupted softly, smiling through tears. That's why you should. You helped because it was right. Grace's father looked from one to the other. Sir, it's too much. We've worked to keep her in school, but... Landon lifted a hand. You've done more than enough. You raised someone who sees worth where others see failure. That's something money can't buy. He stood, walked a few steps to Grace, and placed the envelope in her hands. Please, let me do this. You gave my daughter back a measure of faith I thought she'd lost, and you reminded me of what being a father truly means. Grace's fingers closed around the envelope. Her voice was small. Thank you, Mr. Reeves. Landon, he corrected kindly. Thank you, Grace. For a moment, no one spoke. The rain eased to a hush outside, the world holding still. Then Liam gave a soft laugh, a sudden bubble of joy that made everyone smile. Ava kissed the top of his head. Even he agrees, she whispered. Landon chuckled quietly. Smart boy. Grace's mother wiped her eyes. You have a beautiful family, sir. I hope you'll all be together now. We will, Landon said. No more pride, no more distance. Just the things that last. He looked at Ava. And the people who remind us of them. Ava met his gaze, a fragile relief breaking through. Thank you, Dad. He smiled faintly. Welcome home. Grace looked at them, father, daughter, and child, and felt something settle inside her, the quiet certainty that kindness had found its way to where it belonged. Outside, the clouds thinned. The first edge of dawn turned the windows pale gold. Landon walked them back toward the foyer. Your car will take you home, he said. But if you'd rather fly, the helicopter's ready. Grace glanced once toward the helipad through the glass, the machine resting still now against the lightening sky. I think the car will do, she said with a smile. He nodded, understanding. As they stepped into the gentle morning, Ava called after her. Grace? Grace turned. Ava held Liam a little higher. The baby's small hand waved in the air. We'll see you again, she said. Grace smiled. I'll hold you to that. They walked toward the waiting car. Behind them, the mansion glowed softly against the lifting mist. The world felt different, not larger, just clearer. Sometimes, Grace thought, kindness doesn't end where you give it. It circles back, not as reward, but as proof that it mattered. And for the first time in a long while, everything felt enough.